After the wedding, everything seemed perfect. My daughter Emily had married Jason, a man who looked charming, respectful, and intelligent, the kind of son-in-law any father would be proud to have. They had a small ceremony in our backyard. Jason smiled the entire time, shaking hands with everyone, even helping my wife clean up afterward. He was the perfect gentleman. But I didn't know that underneath that polite smile, he had been planning something dark. The day after the wedding, Jason showed up at my house with a notary and a folder filled with papers. I was sitting in the kitchen, sipping my morning coffee, when I saw him walking toward the porch. "Morning, Dad," he said casually, calling me Dad for the first time. I smiled, thinking he'd come to thank me for the wedding, but instead he placed the folder in front of me. "I just need you to sign these papers. It's about the property." I frowned. "Property?" I asked. He nodded confidently. "Yes, the house. Emily and I talked about it. You said one day this would be hers, so we figured it's easier to transfer it now. We brought a notary to make it official." My smile faded. The notary stood silently behind him, looking uncomfortable. "Jason," I said slowly, "I never said I was giving this house to anyone yet." His eyes hardened. "Come on, Dad," he said, his voice firm. "It's the right thing to do. We're family now. Besides, Emily and I already put some of our money into the renovation. It's only fair." My stomach tightened. Something wasn't right. I had never agreed to any renovation, and Emily hadn't mentioned anything about money. I looked at the papers and noticed something odd. My name had already been typed in the seller's section, and the buyer's name was Jason Miller, not Emily, only Jason. I leaned back and smiled calmly. "You're right, Jason. It's only fair," I said. He looked relieved. "So, you'll sign?" I nodded slightly. "Sure. Let's see what the FBI thinks." His face turned white. "What?" he said, stammering. "You heard me," I said. "This house has been under government observation for months. You really think I wouldn't notice fake documents?" Jason froze. The notary immediately stepped back. "Fake? What are you talking about?" Jason said, his voice cracking. I picked up the folder and flipped to the last page. "This is a property fraud form, Jason. I used to work in real estate fraud detection for the FBI. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He started sweating. I didn't know. Emily said—" "Emily knows nothing," I interrupted. "You planned this yourself. You thought marrying my daughter would give you access to this house, didn't you?" He didn't answer. He just stood there trembling, realizing he had walked straight into a trap. I took out my phone, pressed a button, and said, "Agent Collins, you might want to come in now." Within seconds, 2 men in suits appeared from the side yard, flashing badges. Jason's jaw dropped. You set me up?" he whispered. I nodded. "No, Jason, you set yourself up." Jason's face went pale as the 2 FBI agents walked in through the back door, their black suits sharp against the morning light. One of them, Agent Collins, nodded at me before stepping closer to Jason. "Jason Miller?" he said in a firm voice. Jason froze, his hands still on the table. "You're under investigation for property fraud and identity manipulation. Please keep your hands visible." Jason tried to smile nervously. This must be some mistake. I'm just trying to make things right for my family." Collins looked at him coldly. "Your family? You mean the same family you tried to scam using forged transfer documents and a fake notary?" The notary quickly raised both hands. "I swear, I didn't know these were fake documents. He paid me to come." Jason turned to me, panic in his eyes. "Please, Mr. Thompson, tell them this isn't what it looks like." I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "It looks exactly like what it is, Jason. You married my daughter to get this house, and now you're caught." Emily's footsteps echoed from upstairs. She must have heard the noise because a moment later she appeared at the top of the stairs in her robe, her eyes wide with confusion. "Dad? Jason? What's going on?" Jason's voice cracked. "Emily, honey, listen. Your dad's got it all wrong. He's trying to make me look like some kind of criminal." Emily looked between us, unsure what to believe. "Jason, why are there FBI agents in our kitchen?" she whispered. He opened his mouth, but Agent Collins spoke first.
Ma'am, your husband is suspected of using fraudulent documents to illegally transfer property ownership. We have evidence linking him to multiple similar cases." Emily gasped. "What? No, that can't be true." Jason grabbed her hand desperately. "They're lying, Emily. I did it for us. He was never going to give us the house, and we needed a place to start our life." "You did it for us?" she interrupted, pulling her hand away. "You forged documents behind my back?" He tried to speak, but his voice broke into stutters. Collins motioned to his partner, who began reading Jason his rights. "Jason Miller, you are under arrest for attempted real estate fraud and falsification of federal documents." Jason shook his head violently. "No, wait! You don't understand! There's someone else! I was told to do this!" That made everyone pause. Collins raised an eyebrow. "Told by who?" Jason swallowed hard. "A man named Peter Hayes. He said he could make everything legal. He said he had connections. He promised me that if I got my father-in-law's signature, he'd take care of the rest." Collins looked at me. "Mr. Thompson, do you know a Peter Hayes?" I nodded slowly. "I do. He used to work at the same real estate firm years ago, before he got fired for embezzlement." Collins scribbled something in his notebook. "Interesting. Looks like we might be dealing with a larger ring." Jason was nearly tears now. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I love Emily. I just wanted us to have a future." Emily stood there silently, tears filling her eyes. "Jason, the only thing you've given me is shame," she said quietly. The agents led Jason out of the house as he kept pleading, "Jason, please, tell them I didn't mean it." The sound of the car door slamming outside echoed like an ending note. After they left, Emily sat at the kitchen table, trembling. "Dad, how long have you known?" I sighed. Since the first time I met him. Something about his story didn't fit. He said he was in real estate, but his credentials didn't match, so I did some checking. When I found out about the fake companies he'd been tied to, I reached out to my old contacts in the bureau. We started watching him. She was stunned. "You mean you knew before the wedding?" "Yes," I admitted softly. "But I needed to be sure, and now we have everything." Emily wiped her tears, half angry, half heartbroken. "I can't believe I fell for him." I put my hand on hers. "You loved him, Em. That's not a mistake. The mistake was trusting someone who used love as a tool." She nodded slowly, staring at the table. "What happens to him now?" I looked out the window where the FBI car was disappearing down the road. "That depends on whether he tells them the truth about Peter Hayes." Collins stepped back inside, holding a file. "Mr. Thompson, you were right to call us. Hayes has been under our radar for months. Jason's testimony might be the final piece we need." He handed me his card. "If he cooperates, we might be able to take the whole ring down." I nodded, feeling the strange mix of relief and sadness. "Just promise me one thing," I said. "Keep my daughter out of this." Collins nodded. "We will." He left, closing the door behind him. Emily stood and walked to the window. The sunlight hit her face, but her eyes were distant. "I thought marriage was supposed to be about trust." "It is," I replied quietly, "but sometimes trust can blind us to the truth." She turned to me, her voice trembling. "Dad, I don't even know who I married." I didn't know how to answer that. The house was silent, except for the faint hum with the refrigerator. After a long pause, I said, "Maybe it's time we both find out who Jason really is." She frowned. "What do you mean?" I looked toward the folder he'd left behind. "Because something tells me this isn't over yet."
That night, the house felt emptier than ever. The wedding decorations were still there, flowers wilting, ribbons falling from the ceiling. But everything felt fake now, just like Jason's promises. Emily hadn't spoken much since the FBI left. She stayed in her room, crying quietly. I couldn't sleep either. I sat in the living room staring at the folder Jason had brought earlier. It was full of forged signatures, fake seals, and one thing that didn't belong. A business card tucked between the pages. It read, "Hayes and Partners, Real Estate Consulting." There was a phone number scrawled on the back. I turned it over and stared at it for a long moment. My instincts told me this was the thread that could unravel everything. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. After 3 rings, a calm male voice answered. Hayes and Partners? Peter speaking. For a second, I said nothing, then replied, Mr. Hayes, this is Robert Thompson. There was silence on the line for a moment. Then the voice changed, colder. Ah, so you're the father-in-law. You've caused quite a mess, Robert. My grip on the phone tightened. You tricked my daughter's husband into fraud, I said. He chuckled softly. Jason knew exactly what he was doing. I just gave him the opportunity. He wanted the house. He wanted the money. Don't make it sound like I forced him. I clenched my jaw. The FBI knows everything, I said. Hayes laughed again. The FBI knows what I let them know. You really think I'm that careless? I've been doing this for 20 years, old man. You can't touch me. Then the line went dead. I sat there, listening to the empty tone, my heart pounding. I knew he was lying. But something told me Hayes wasn't just a con artist. He was part of something much bigger. The next morning, I called Agent Collins and told him about the call. You actually spoke to Hayes? He said, surprised. Yes, and he's not scared of you. He thinks he's untouchable. Collins sighed. That's because we don't have enough evidence yet. But if you can get him to talk again or give us a meeting location, we might have a chance. That was dangerous territory. But I'd done dangerous things before. I used to run undercover investigations before I retired. I could handle one more. I didn't tell Emily what I planned. I just said I was going out for groceries and drove straight to the address printed on the business card. It was a glass office building downtown. The sign said, Hayes and Partners. I walked in casually. The receptionist smiled. Do you have an appointment? Tell Peter Hayes that Robert Thompson is here, I said calmly. She hesitated, but made the call. A few minutes later, a tall man in a gray suit stepped out from an office. He looked confident, clean-cut, the kind of man who could charm anyone. Mr. Thompson, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, I was wondering when you'd come. I followed him into his office. He closed the door quietly. You've got nerve showing up here, he said. I sat down across from him. You used my family to commit fraud. You're lucky I haven't already called the bureau. He smirked. You think they can stop this? Jason was just one of many. He was small time. What are you running, Hayes? I asked. He leaned back in his chair. Let's just say there are a lot of desperate people who do anything for a little security. A fake marriage here, a property deal there. It's all business. You call it ruining lives, I call it opportunity. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just manipulating people, he believed what he was doing was justified. I noticed a security camera blinking above his desk. Perfect evidence. I pressed the small recording device hidden in my pocket. Hayes leaned forward. Look, Robert, I can make this go away. Sign over the house to my company, and I'll make sure Jason gets a lighter sentence. You get your piece, I get my property. Deal? I smiled slightly. You're making offers to the wrong man, Hayes. He frowned. What do you mean? I leaned forward. I worked with the FBI for 25 years. You just confessed on camera. His face turned pale for the first time. Then I heard a click from behind me. The office door opened, and 2 large men in black suits walked in. One of them said, Boss, is everything okay? Hayes straightened. Change of plans. Get rid of him. My heart raced. I stood up quickly, knocking the chair back. You really want to add kidnapping to your record? I said. They moved closer. One grabbed my arm, but before he could drag me out, Hayes's phone buzzed. He answered, and his expression changed instantly. He looked terrified. What? Now? How did they? He looked at me with pure hate. You called them. I smiled faintly. No, Peter, you did. The moment you answered my call last night, we traced your number. Outside, sirens wailed. The men in black froze. Agent Collins burst through the office door, gun drawn. FBI, drop your weapons. Hayes raised his hands slowly. You can't prove anything, he said through gritted teeth. Collins pointed at the camera above his desk. That's enough proof for a lifetime. The agents cuffed him and led him out. I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Collins looked at me. You took a huge risk, Robert. I nodded. It was worth it. He smiled. You just helped take down one of the biggest real estate fraud rings in the country. When I got home, Emily was waiting at the door. Her eyes were red from crying. Dad, what happened? I was so scared. I smiled tiredly. It's over, Em. Hayes is in custody. Jason might get a deal if he helps them. She hugged me tightly. I don't know what I'd do without you. I looked at the horizon, where the morning sun was rising. You'll be fine, Em. You're stronger than you think. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. Hayes's last words echoed in my mind. Jason was just one of many. What if there were others? What if this wasn't the end?
For a few days after Hayes' arrest, things seemed calm. Too calm. The house was quiet. Emily tried to return to her normal life, but the trust she'd lost still hung between us like fog. She kept asking about Jason, if he'd said anything, if there was hope for him. I didn't have answers. All I knew was that the FBI had taken him to a federal facility where he was cooperating in exchange for a lighter sentence. But something about the whole thing didn't sit right. Hayes' words wouldn't leave my head. Jason was just one of many. One evening, while I was reading through old case files in my study, I noticed something strange. The same signature that appeared on Hayes' forged property forms was identical to a name from an old fraud case I'd worked on 15 years ago. The name was Michael Denton. He'd vanished before trial back in 2009, and rumor had it he'd been working with multiple aliases. If Denton and Hayes had a history together, this case wasn't finished, not even close. I called Agent Collins and told him what I found. He sounded tense. Robert, that name just came up in a new lead. We traced some offshore accounts connected to Hayes, and one of the beneficiaries is a Michael Denton. We think he's running the financial side of the operation. My heart dropped. Then he's still out there. Collins sighed. Yes, and he's good. Very good. We're trying to locate him, but he's covered his tracks well. If you find anything unusual, let me know immediately. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Around midnight, I heard something outside. A car engine idling just beyond the driveway. I turned off the lights and peeked through the curtain. There was a black SUV parked across the street, the headlights off, windows tinted. I waited, but no one came out. After a few minutes, it drove away quietly. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't want to scare her. But the next morning, she noticed something I hadn't. There was a small white envelope slipped under the front door. No return address, just one word, written in black ink. Stop. Inside was a photograph of me, sitting in the cafe where I'd met Collins 2 days earlier. Someone had been following me. My pulse quickened. I called Collins immediately. They know we're still digging, I said. They're watching the house. He told me to stay put and promised to send a surveillance team within the hour. By noon, 2 unmarked cars were parked nearby, and an FBI agent stayed discreetly inside our house. But Emily was terrified. Dad, this isn't over, is it? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Not yet, but we're safe. They want to scare us. That means we're getting close to something big. That night, while Emily slept, I went through Hayes' laptop, which the FBI had returned for analysis. Hidden in a folder labeled Contracts, I found a list of addresses, each marked with initials like MD, JR, and LH. They weren't property owners. They were targets. One address caught my eye. A cabin in Wyoming, marked Primary Site. Denton. I immediately called Collins. "I think I found where Denton is hiding." Collins hesitated. "Robert, don't go there. We'll handle it." But I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. I knew bureaucracy could take days. I didn't have that time. So the next morning, I packed a small bag, left a note for Emily, and drove west for 12 hours straight. The farther I went, the more isolated it became, snow starting to fall lightly by the time I reached the mountains. The cabin was exactly where the file said it would be, tucked among tall pine trees, smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was inside. I parked a mile away and approached quietly through the woods. My breath fogged in the cold air. Every sound felt louder than it should have, the crunch of snow underfoot, the distant howl of the wind. When I reached the edge of the clearing, I saw a man through the window, sitting at a desk typing. He looked older, gray beard, glasses, but the face was familiar. It was Michael Denton. I took out my phone, snapped a photo, and sent it to Collins with my location. Then, suddenly my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. "Turn around, Robert." My heart skipped a beat. I froze, slowly turning my head. Behind me, a shadow moved. A man in a ski mask, holding a gun. "You shouldn't have come here, old man," he said quietly. I raised my hands. "Denton, I assume?" He laughed softly. "You FBI types never quit, do they? Even when you're retired." "You're making a mistake," I said. "They already have Hayes. They know about your accounts. It's over." He stepped closer, gun still aimed at me. "Over? No, Robert. It's just beginning. Hayes was sloppy. He drew too much attention. But me, I'm the one who built this network. The FBI can't touch me." I tried to stall for time. "They can and they will. You left a trail. I found your file. I know everything." He smirked. "Then you know too much." He lifted the gun. I dove sideways as a gunshot echoed through the trees. The bullet grazed my arm, pain burning through my shoulder. But before he could fire again, headlights flashed across the clearing. FBI vehicles surrounding the cabin. "Drop the weapon," agents shouted. Denton cursed and ran toward the back, but an agent tackled him to the ground within seconds. I fell to my knees, breathing heavily. Collins ran to me. "Robert, okay?" I nodded weakly. "Got him, didn't we?" Collins smiled grimly. "Yeah, we got him. And thanks to you, we have enough to shut this whole operation down for good." Paramedics treated my wound as I watched Denton being dragged into custody. His eyes met mine for a moment, cold and filled with hate. "You think you've won, Thompson? You have no idea what's coming next."
Those words echoed in my head all the way home. 3 weeks passed since the night in Wyoming when Denton was captured, but peace never really returned. The FBI had kept us under protection, moving Emily and me to a safe house in Virginia, far away from our old home. The agency told us it was temporary, just until the investigation was closed, but I knew better. Investigations like this never really ended, not when the rot ran deep. Every morning I'd sit by the window, sipping my coffee while 2 black SUVs stayed parked at the end of the street. The agents rotated shifts, polite but silent, always alert. Emily tried to distract herself, reading, painting, sometimes pretending everything was fine. But the tension was there, always there. One night she walked into the living room holding her phone, pale. "Dad, look at this." It was a message from an unknown number, again, just like before. It said, "We warned you. Stop before she pays for it." I grabbed the phone, my hands tightening. They found us. I called Collins immediately. "Robert, listen carefully," he said. "We've intercepted chatter from inside the bureau. Someone's leaking locations. Someone high up is feeding Denton's people." My stomach dropped. "You're saying there's a mole inside the FBI?" Collins hesitated. "We can't confirm yet, but yes, it looks that way." That meant we weren't safe anywhere. Emily looked terrified. "Dad, what do we do?" I took a deep breath. "We do what we always do. We stay one step ahead." That night I made a plan. If there was a mole inside the bureau, Then I needed to find him before he found us. I started going through the encrypted files Collins had shared earlier. Logs of communication, photos of suspects, payment trails. One name kept appearing over and over again, linked to both Hayes and Denton's accounts. A special agent named Mark Jensen. I remembered him from years ago. He was ambitious. Too ambitious. Always looking for shortcuts to power. I called Collins the next morning. "Do you trust Jensen?" I asked. Silence. "Why?" "Because he's the leak," I said. "He's been working both sides. He helped Hayes with the paperwork and Denton with the money." Collins cursed under his breath. "If that's true, we're all in danger." "It is true," I said. "Check the Cayman Islands transfers last quarter. They trace back to an account under Jensen's wife's name." Collins promised to look into it and told me to stay put, but I couldn't. I knew if Jensen realized I'd found out, he'd come for us first. So I started preparing. I packed bags for Emily, made sure the car was fueled, and waited. Just after sunset, I saw movement outside. 2 figures approaching the house. Not bureau agents. They moved differently, quieter. I turned off the lights, grabbed my old revolver from the drawer, and motioned Emily to hide in the back room. The front door creaked open. "Mr. Thompson, open up." But it wasn't Collins's voice. I stayed silent. They stepped in slowly, flashlights sweeping across the living room. I counted 2, maybe 3. I could hear the faint click of a gun's safety released. "You shouldn't have dug so deep, Robert," one of them said. I recognized that voice. Mark Jensen. "You just couldn't retire quietly, could you?" "So it's true," I said, stepping out from behind the corner, gun raised. "You were working with them." Jensen smiled in the dim light. "Working with them? No, Robert, I was leading them. You think Hayes or Denton could move millions without someone inside clearing the way?" My finger tightened on the trigger. "You betrayed everything we stood for." "I adapted," he said. "The system's broken, Robert. We just used it better." Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the window. Agents in black uniforms stormed the house. "FBI, drop your weapons." Jensen spun, firing 2 shots, hitting one of the agents before diving behind the couch. Bullets ripped through the walls. Emily screamed from the back room. "Dad!" I shouted. "Stay down!" Collins's voice roared through the chaos. "Jensen, it's over." Jensen laughed, firing again. "You're too late." Then he bolted through the kitchen door and out the back. I ran after him, ignoring the pain in my shoulder from Wyoming. The night air was cold, the sound of gunfire fading behind me. Jensen sprinted toward a black SUV parked near the woods. I tackled him before he could reach it. The 2 of us crashed into the dirt, struggling for control. He punched hard, but I managed to twist his arm and send the gun flying. He snarled, "You can't stop it, Robert. It's bigger than you think. We've already started moving the assets overseas." "You're finished," I growled, pinning him down. Collins and 2 agents arrived seconds later, cuffing him as he spat curses. "You don't get it," Jensen shouted. "There are others higher than me. They'll burn everything before they let you expose them." Collins pulled him up. "Then we'll see how they like the spotlight." As they dragged him away, I sat back, breathing heavily, staring at the trees lit by flashing red and blue lights. I thought it was over again, but deep down, I knew Jensen wasn't lying. There were others, somewhere above him, pulling the strings. A week later, Collins confirmed it. Jensen had been working under direct orders from a powerful contractor group connected to government housing deals, billions in fraudulent property transfers. The FBI had enough to blow the operation wide open, but Collins warned me, "Robert, once we release this, you'll be a target for life." I smiled tiredly. What else is new? That night, Emily came to sit beside me on the porch. "Is it finally over?" she asked quietly. I looked up at the stars. "Not yet, Em, but we're close." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I just want to go home." "Me too," I said softly. "But home isn't a place anymore. It's the people who stand beside you when the world falls apart." She smiled faintly. "Then at least we still have that." But somewhere in the distance, a car engine rumbled, moving slowly near the end of the road. Headlights off, moving carefully. My pulse quickened. I knew that sound all too well. The storm wasn't over yet.
The following days blurred into a haze of tension and movement. The Bureau relocated us again, this time to a secured facility deep in the countryside, surrounded by miles of forest and guarded checkpoints. Emily didn't say much anymore, her laughter gone, replaced by quiet stares out the window. I tried to keep her spirits up, telling her it was almost over, that justice would come soon. But deep down, I wasn't sure myself. Jensen's words echoed in my head. There are others higher than me. I'd spent my life believing in the system, in truth and accountability, but now I wondered if those principles even existed anymore. Late one night, while Emily was asleep, my phone buzzed with a message from an encrypted number. "You can't hide forever, Robert. We want the files." My chest tightened. The files. They were talking about the evidence I'd gathered during the investigation, copies of Jensen's transfers, Hayes' property records, Denton's offshore accounts. I'd backed everything up on an external drive hidden inside a false panel under the floorboards of the safe house. They shouldn't have known about it unless someone on the inside was still leaking information. The next morning, Collins came by, his face tense. "We've had a breach, Robert. Someone tried to access the Bureau's internal archive on your case from a government terminal." "Whose terminal?" I asked. He hesitated. "Deputy Director Lawson's." I froze. Lawson was one of the highest-ranking officials in the Bureau, a man I'd respected for years. "You think he's part of it?" Collins sighed. "We don't know yet, but it fits. He's been in charge of oversight for the Housing Task Force. He would have had access to every file Hayes and Jensen moved through." My gut twisted. "Then it goes higher than we thought." Collins nodded. "We're building a case, but we need solid proof. The files you have might be the key." "Then they'll come for them," I said quietly. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The forest outside the facility was silent, too silent. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Just the faint hum of the security lights. Around midnight, I heard a sound downstairs, a soft creak like a door opening. I grabbed the revolver from under the pillow and moved quietly down the hall. Emily's door was still closed. I stepped into the living room, my eyes scanning the shadows. Then I saw it, the faint glint of a flashlight moving along the wall. A figure in black tactical gear crouched near the cabinet where the false floor panel was hidden. Whoever it was knew exactly where to look. I raised the gun. "Don't move," I said. The figure froze for a second, then turned fast, firing a silenced shot that shattered the lamp beside me. I dropped behind the couch, firing back. My bullet hit the wall inches from his head. He bolted for the window, diving through the glass and rolling onto the lawn. Outside, alarms started blaring, red lights flashing through the trees. Guards shouted orders. I ran out after him, the cold air biting my lungs. The intruder sprinted toward the forest, but the security floodlights caught his face for an instant. He wasn't just a mercenary. He was wearing Bureau-issued armor with an ID patch scratched off. He was one of ours, or had been. I chased him through the trees, the sound of branches snapping under our feet. Finally, I tackled him near the fence. The mask fell away, and I froze, staring into a face I recognized. Deputy Director Lawson, himself. Blood trickled down his cheek from the fall. "You shouldn't have seen this, Robert. You think you're saving the system? You're just exposing it to chaos. You betrayed everything you swore to protect. Why?" He smirked. "Because power isn't about justice. It's about control. and I was tired of pretending otherwise. Before I could answer, headlights appeared behind the fence. Collins and a squad of agents surrounded us. "Drop the weapon, Lawson." He laughed bitterly. "You don't even know who you're working for, Collins. You're all pawns." He reached for something in his jacket. I fired a warning shot into the ground. "Don't move." But he pulled a small device, a detonator, from his pocket and pressed the button. Instantly, the ground shook. A deafening explosion erupted from the direction of the safe house. Flames shot into the sky. "Emily!" I screamed and ran back through the woods, ignoring the pain in my legs. The house was burning, collapsing in on itself. I forced my way through the smoke, calling her name. "Emily! Emily, answer me!" Then I heard coughing from under a beam. I pushed it aside and found her there, shaken but alive. I dragged her out as agents sprayed water on the fire. She looked up at me, terrified. "Dad, what happened?" "Lawson planted explosives. He wanted to destroy the evidence." Collins ran over. "We've got him in custody. He's injured but alive. We'll get him to talk." I nodded, still holding Emily close. "He'll never talk willingly." "Then we'll make sure someone else does," Collins said grimly. Over the next few days, the Bureau began piecing together Lawson's network. Dozens of shell companies, false identities, offshore accounts tied to senators, businessmen, even judges. The scandal was about to explode nationwide. Emily and I were moved again, this time to Washington under direct federal protection. Collins came to see me one evening. "Robert, you did it. You exposed the biggest corruption ring in decades, but you should know something. Lawson's people are still out there. We can't trace them all yet." I stared out the window at the city lights. "Then it's not over." He nodded. "No, not yet." That night, Emily came to me quietly. "Dad, I had a dream that we were finally home. Not running, not hiding, just free." I smiled sadly. "Maybe one day." But as I looked out at the Capitol, glowing in the distance, I couldn't help but wondering how deep the corruption still went. How many more like Lawson were sitting behind those bright windows, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The war wasn't over. It was only changing shape.
Weeks passed since the explosion, but the images still haunted me. The fire, the screams, the look in Lawson's eyes before everything went dark. Emily was healing, slowly, both physically and emotionally, but I could see the fear still lingering behind her smile. The Bureau kept us in a high-security apartment in D.C., but even there, I didn't feel safe. Every night, I checked the locks twice, looked out the window for shadows that weren't supposed to be there. Collins visited often, updating me on the investigation, but his tone had grown heavier with each visit. "Lawson's been silent," he said one morning. "He's refusing to talk, even after we confronted him with the evidence. He just keeps saying, 'You'll never touch them.'" "Them?" I asked. "Who's he talking about?" Collins sighed. "We think he means the Syndicate, the ones financing the entire operation, but we can't find any digital trace. They're ghosts." I leaned back in frustration. Ghosts don't move millions of dollars across borders without leaving footprints. Collins nodded. "Exactly. Which means someone's erasing them. Someone inside our system." That night, as Emily slept, I went through the remnants of my old files again. There had to be something I missed, something small. The external drive survived the fire thanks to its reinforced casing. Inside were hundreds of documents, contracts, photos, communications threads between high-ranking officials. Then I found a name buried in a chain of encrypted emails. Aurelian Trust. It wasn't a person. It was a private foundation based out of Delaware, with silent partners listed only by initials. One of those initials matched Lawson's, But another caught my eye. E.M. I opened another folder, cross-referencing the initials with bureau personnel, and froze. E.M. could stand for many things, but one name matched perfectly. Eleanor Marks, Deputy Director of Treasury Intelligence, and an old friend of mine I hadn't spoken to in years. The next morning, I called Collins. "I think I found something. Aurelian Trust, ring a bell?" He paused. "That's a private investment group linked to federal development contracts. Why?" "Because one of its silent partners might be Eleanor Marks." "That's impossible," he said. "Marks is clean. She's been leading the financial task force against corruption for a decade." "That's what they said about Lawson," I replied. He was silent for a long time before saying, "Let me check discreetly. Don't contact her yourself." But I couldn't sit still. I needed answers. I left the safe house that evening under the pretense of getting air and drove across town to Marks's office in a rented sedan. The building was nearly empty at that hour. Her lights were still on. She always worked late. I walked in without knocking. "Robert," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I need to ask you something, Eleanor," I said. "Does Aurelian Trust mean anything to you?" Her face went pale for a second. Then she forced a smile. "That's a private investment group." "Why?" "Because your initials are on the partner list next to Lawson's." Her voice hardened. "You shouldn't have come here, Robert. You don't know what you're getting into." "Then explain it to me," I said, stepping closer. "Lawson tried to kill my daughter. He blew up my house. He said there were others above him. Was it you?" She didn't answer. Her hand slowly reached toward the drawer. I drew my gun. "Don't." She froze, then sighed heavily. "You're in over your head, Robert. You think you're uncovering corruption, but what you're really doing is tearing apart the last threads keeping this country stable." "By murdering people? By stealing homes?" I shouted. "You call that stability?" Her eyes flashed cold. "You don't understand. The Syndicate funds the government itself. Without us, the economy collapses. The Bureau shuts down, Congress turns on itself. Everything you believe in dies overnight." "So you became part of it? To save the system?" She nodded slightly. "Sometimes you have to poison the wound to save the limb." "That's not saving it, Eleanor. That's corruption wrapped in patriotism." For a moment, silence hung between us. Then she whispered, "They know you're here, Robert. You shouldn't have come alone." I turned just in time to see two men in black suits enter the room, weapons drawn. They weren't Bureau. They were private contractors. I fired once, hitting one in the shoulder, grabbing the drive from the desk and diving behind a column. The other returned fire, bullets shattering glass. "You can't escape this time," he shouted. I rolled out from cover, shot twice, and ran toward the emergency exit. Eleanor's voice echoed behind me. "You'll destroy everything!" I didn't stop. I burst through the door into the alley, sprinting toward my car. My lungs burned, my heart pounded. As I reached the vehicle, headlights flared, blinding me. A black SUV blocked the road. Collins stepped out, gun raised. "Robert, drop the weapon." "Collins, thank God," I said. "Marks is involved. She—" "I know," he interrupted. "Get in the car now. We need to move." I hesitated. "You knew?" His jaw tightened. "Just get in, we don't have time." Reluctantly, I climbed in. The SUV sped through the streets, weaving between traffic. "You were following me, weren't you?" I asked. He didn't answer. "Collins, talk to me." He looked at me finally, eyes tired. "You think you're the only one trying to stop them. I've been working both sides, trying to keep you alive." "Both sides?" I said, stunned. "You're with them?" "No, I'm trying to survive long enough to expose them. Marks has people everywhere, Robert, even in the Bureau's command. She wants that drive you took. She'll burn D.C. to get it. Then what's the plan?" "There's a secure drop at Quantico. We hand it to the one person they can't touch yet, Senator Reed. He's been leading the Oversight Committee on corruption. He's clean." I stared out the window, unsure who to believe anymore. The city lights blurred past like ghosts chasing us. "And if Reed's not clean?" I asked. Collins smirked grimly. "Then God help us all." We drove in silence for miles, until we reached a checkpoint in the woods.
The guard stepped out, flashlight raised. "Evening, agents. Can I see your IDs?" Collins handed his badge, but the guard's hand trembled slightly. Then I saw it, the faint glint of a tattoo on his wrist, the same serpent emblem I'd seen on Lawson's documents. My stomach dropped. "Collins! He's one of them!" I shouted. The guard drew his weapon, but Collins reacted first, slamming the accelerator. The SUV rammed through the barrier, bullets cracking the windshield. "Hang on!" he yelled. We sped down the dirt road, trees whipping by on both sides. Behind us, multiple vehicles gave chase, their headlights glowing like predators in the dark. I clutched the drive in my hand, realizing this was more than just evidence. It was the key to everything, and the reason they'd never stop hunting us.
The night air was thick with smoke and gunfire as Collins swerved through the forest road, the tires screaming against the dirt. I held onto the dash, gripping the drive tight against my chest. Bullets tore through the back window, shards flying across my face. "They're gaining on us!" I shouted. Collins gritted his teeth. "Hold on!" He slammed the brakes, spinning the SUV sideways. The pursuing vehicles tried to adjust, but one crashed head-on into a tree, bursting into flames. The explosion lit up the woods. We jumped out, taking cover behind the SUV. The remaining men in black spread out through the trees, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness. I fired blindly, hearing one scream and fall. Collins shouted, "We need to move toward the ravine! If we can reach the river, they'll lose us!" We ran through the underbrush, branches tearing at our clothes, gunfire echoing behind us. When we reached the edge of the ravine, the drop was at least 40 feet down, and the river below churned violently. "There's no way we survive that!" I yelled. "It's our only shot," Collins said, before leaping. He disappeared into the darkness. I took one last look back at the figures closing in, then jumped. The impact was like hitting concrete. The current dragged me under, spinning me until I didn't know which way was up. I surfaced, gasping, my body screaming from the cold. I saw Collins downstream, clinging to a rock. He reached out, shouting, but his voice was drowned by the roaring water. We were swept apart. I don't remember how long I drifted before the current threw me onto the bank. I crawled out, coughing, my body shaking. The drive was still in my jacket, soaked but intact. Dawn was breaking, pink light cutting through the mist. I stumbled through the woods until I found an abandoned cabin hidden among the trees. Inside, I collapsed on the floor, too tired to think. Hours passed before I woke to the sound of footsteps. I grabbed my revolver, pointing it toward the door. It creaked open, and there stood Collins, soaked, bruised, but alive. "You're hard to kill, Robert," he said with a weak smile. "You too," I replied. He closed the door behind him. "We can't go to Quantico. They've sealed every bureau route. Mark's declared you rogue. She says you killed Lawson and stole federal evidence. So now we're the villains," I muttered. He nodded. "Pretty much." I sat down, rubbing my temples. "Then what's next?" "We go public," he said. "Expose everything to the world." I hesitated. "They'll kill us before that happens." "Then we make sure the truth dies with no one," Collins said. "We upload the drive to multiple networks, encrypted across different countries. We scatter it everywhere, so even if they erase one copy, another survives." It was insane, but it was the only option. We set up the laptop using a portable signal jammer to mask our location. Collins worked fast decrypting the files, converting them into secure packets. The data contained everything: offshore accounts, real estate scams, blackmail logs, even video recordings of high officials meeting secretly, including one with Marks herself and a senator I'd once trusted. "How long?" I asked. 2 minutes, he said, typing furiously. But before the upload completed, headlights appeared outside. My blood ran cold. "They found us!" Collins cursed. "We're out of time!" We grabbed our weapons, the laptop still running. Behind us, the screen flashed, "Upload, 87%. The first gunshots shattered the windows. I ducked behind the table, firing back. "Keep it running!" I shouted. Collins returned fire from the door. 2 men fell, but more came through the trees. One grenade hit the porch, blowing the front wall apart. I shielded the laptop with my body as debris rained down. Collins was bleeding from the shoulder, but still firing. "Go, Robert! Take the drive and run!" Not without you, I shouted. He gave a grim smile. You've got a daughter. She needs to see this through. Go. Before I could argue, he turned, firing one last burst as I grabbed the drive and bolted out the back door. Through the trees I ran, hearing explosions behind me. My lungs burned, the cold air slicing my throat. When I reached the clearing, I saw a parked van, headlights flashing. Emily stood there, tears in her eyes. Dad! She ran to me. How did you find me? I asked. Collins sent a message before the signal cut out. He told me where to go. I looked back at the burning cabin. He's gone! Emily shook her head, sobbing. No, he can't be, I said. He bought us time, I said, choking on the words. We have to finish this. We drove for miles until we reached an abandoned radio tower from the old emergency network. The system was outdated but still connected to multiple international relays. I plugged in the drive, my hands trembling. Emily watched the screen. Will this really work? She asked. It has to, I said. The upload resumed from backup. Collins had built redundancy into it. The progress bar crawled painfully slow. Every second felt like an eternity. Then static buzzed through the radio, an incoming transmission. Robert Miller, this is Director Marks. You're making a mistake. Her voice was calm, cold. Do you think leaking classified material will fix anything? You'll destroy this country. You'll be hunted for the rest of your life. I pressed the mic button. Maybe, but at least it'll be honest again. She nimbled. You're naive. You think truth brings peace? Truth brings chaos. Then let the world decide what it can live with, I replied. I cut the transmission. The bar hit 100%. The files scattered across networks, encrypted, duplicated, backed up to international servers. It was done. Emily whispered. So what happens now? I smiled weakly. Now we wait. Minutes later, phones across the country buzzed with alerts. Media outlets broke into live coverage. Documents, videos, and financial records flooded the internet, exposing decades of corruption within government agencies. The nation erupted in shock. Within hours, arrests began. High officials, senators, judges, even the president's advisor. The syndicate had fallen, but at a cost. That night, Emily and I watched from a motel room far from the city. She leaned against me. Do you think it's really over? I looked out at the horizon where the first signs of dawn broke through the clouds. Not over, just cleaner for now. She smiled faintly. What will we do? I think we'll start again somewhere quiet. Maybe fix up a small house, one we actually own this time. She laughed softly for the first time in months. You think they'll come after us? Probably, I said, but they'll have to find us first. I turned off the news and stepped outside, the cold air hitting my face. The world felt different, lighter and heavier all at once. Collins was gone, but his sacrifice mattered. The truth was out, and though the system would rebuild, maybe this time it would remember what it almost lost. Emily joined me on the porch, wrapping her arms around me. We did it, Dad, she whispered. I looked up at the sky, where the stars faded into morning. No, sweetheart, you did. We both did.